Welcome to the Victorious Living Podcast. You're about to hear real stories of real people who have discovered the real hope of Jesus Christ. I'm Christy Overton Johnson, the founder and publisher of Victorious Living magazine. Since 2011, I've had the privilege of sharing the most amazing life stories. I never cease to be amazed at the life-transforming power of Jesus Christ. Today in our podcast, you're going to go deeper into these amazing God stories and hear from those who have overcome incredible odds and discover how they found a life of freedom. You can discover it too. I trust that you'll enjoy today's conversation between our host and our special guest. Thank you for listening, and be sure to share the hope you hear and the mission of Victorious Living.
Welcome back to the Victorious Living Podcast. I'm your host, Brooke, on the mic with Brenda Cooney. Brenda, thanks for joining us.
Hi.
I'm thrilled to connect with you just through Sheridan and Christy and everybody over at Victorious Living Magazine. And I'm thrilled to share your story today. This podcast has impacted millions of men and women behind bars and also family members and friends. And so we just got a really good thing going here. And Brenda, you are just a delight. And I know your story is going to offer a lot of hope to those watching and listening. So, Brenda, I would love for you to just share your testimony and just where God has brought you and ultimately what led you to Victorious Living Ministry.
Okay. Well, I have been in recovery, and I can now say I'm 10 years sober. I just got 10 years on Wednesday. So
wow, that's huge.
I know.
Congrats.
I know. And tonight I'm actually going out to dinner and with some of my friends. And I can say today I have more friends than the restaurant will allow reservations for. So 30 friends are coming to my dinner tonight. And that's amazing. When you hear my story, you'll understand how impactful that is. So I was kind of born into a dysfunctional family. My dad was an alcoholic, and I don't really remember a lot because my parents got divorced when I was 6. My mom did get married shortly after divorcing my dad, and she married a man with 7 children. And out of my mom has 4 and my stepdad has 7, and so there's 11 of us.
Wow.
And I'm the youngest of all 11 kids. My oldest brother, that my mom's son, passed away from suicide when I was 14, and my oldest sister from my mom's side died in a plane crash when I was 16. So I have one brother left from my mother's side, from my blood relative, and he is a homeless heroin addict. The environment didn't help a lot. My dad, my stepdad was a good dad. He was a great dad. He was not an alcoholic, and my mom was not an alcoholic, but she was a workaholic, and she worked all the time. So I would say by the time I was 11, I hardly had a relationship with my parents at all. And so where I sought attention was outside the house. And I had a paper route when I was 11. And back in the 80s, we did door-to-door sales and door-to-door payments. And there were 4 different houses where the man of the house would invite me in and molest me. And I did not think there was anything wrong with that. I had no idea that was wrong. Just because I think my parents, by the time they got to me, they were so tired. So many kids by the time you get to the youngest, and they're older now, parents, because they had me last. My dad was asleep all the time. My mom was at work at night. So I just didn't have that focus, that guidance on what was right and what was wrong. I actually enjoyed going to those houses because I got attention. So at a very young age, I had like a very skewed view of what real love was, right? Going into my teens, I met a boy when I was 12, and it was the first night I stayed out all night. And we got drunk and high, and I just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. It was so much fun. And I just love this boy. I'm like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this kid, you know? And we ended up having our first child when I was 15.
Wow.
So just kind of the dynamics were, there was no like moral compass, you know, like what was right and what was wrong. And getting attention outside the house was where I got it, you know. So my parents made us get married. We had our son, we got married, and then shortly after we had another son. So I had another son when I was 17. And all the time while we were married, he was in a gang when I first met him, like a gang, I don't know what you would call it, but it was West Side, and they committed crimes all the time. So at this very young age, we were burglarizing houses, and I would do the run. I was the getaway person, so I was the person who drove the vehicle. So we're 17, he's 19, and we got into crack cocaine. And that is like one of those drugs that you just do it and you are out of, you don't even know what reality is anymore. He was also physically abusive to me the entire time that we were together. From age 12 to age 18, I was physically abused and beat up by him on a weekly basis. Sometimes so badly that my mom couldn't even recognize my face. And so when I was 18, we had the two kids, and I was so tired of the lifestyle that we were living. I finally said, I'm done. And I moved out. And I moved into a house where they had one bedroom that was, it was cut off from the rest of the house, and it had a kitchen. It was like a kitchenette. And he came over to that place and talked to me during the day at some point, and that was July 1st, 1989. Later that day, he got into a car accident and died. And I was not disappointed, which is
You
weird.
feel like a version of relief.
I was relieved.
Yeah.
I was relieved because I couldn't see me being without him. Yet I knew that I didn't want to be with him anymore because he was a bad influence.
Right.
And I quit doing crack cocaine, and I started living my life like normal. And I actually became Christian at that time.
Okay.
And I moved into my own apartment, and my kind of radar was now on for the next person, because I need another person. Now I need my, another person to help me pay bills was really what my radar was, to be honest. So I met husband number two. He was an alcoholic, and I kind of had like I need to fix you syndrome. So I married him. He was also physically abusive. We had another child, so I had my third son. And by the time I was 21, I was alcoholic along with him. And we were drinking daily. He was getting DUIs, but always getting out of them somehow. And I was kind of running that marriage, so to speak. I kind of like, I was the responsible alcoholic. So by the time we were married, maybe 5 years, So I was like 23, I would say. I finally got tired of that abuse and um, decided to leave him. And so now the search is on for victim number three, right? Um, I did meet someone who was a Christian, and we got married, and we went to church. And in this church, I kind of didn't have like a lot of a Christian background, and I wouldn't say that I had like this serious belief or relationship with God at the time. And I kind of put the pastor in a God
Yeah.
place for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked up to the pastor like he was my God. And this particular church was the type of church that they really felt like women should stay home, be barefoot and pregnant, make
Got
the
it.
babies,
Yeah.
take the TV out of the house, no public influence, no outside influence, no social influence from other people. You should just go to church and you should be baking and cooking and having babies. And
Super duper extreme.
super
And
conservative, yes.
yeah, yeah.
Extreme to the
Very
max.
extreme. Doesn't have a ton of reference for culture and
Right.
just the progression culture and women and,
Yes,
the way
right.
the Lord views women, so it's, yeah, got it.
And I was a career woman. I worked for a bank.
Hmm.
So it didn't make sense to me, and I didn't quit my job, but we did spend all our time with these people. We would have dinner at different people's houses. We did things at the church together. This was our cult, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the preacher, the pastor, had an affair with a choir girl. And my whole like bubble burst.
Yeah.
Okay. I also had two more children during this marriage. And by the time I was 29, I had five boys, and I had postpartum depression after my fifth child so badly that I did not want to have children at all. And I would think of ways that I could get rid of the children. How can I get rid of these kids?
Right.
I can't keep watching these
You were
children.
in this horrible like trauma cycle.
So traumatic.
And this is your third husband,
Third husband,
fifth kid.
fifth kid,
Okay.
and I'm 29.
Got it.
So what I found at the time, and I didn't know that I had postpartum depression. So I just thought this was reality. To me, reality was depression, sickness, don't want these kids. Oh, alcohol relieves these symptoms. And alcohol became my God. So I drank to relieve the symptoms that I had. I would leave the kids at home and go, I would go to work, come home, make sure they were all whatever, and then I would leave even before he got home. And he would have to like come find me in the bars. He would literally show up at the bar and pull me out of the bar.
I know, just a quick little interjection here. I know there are so many people listening to your story that can go, I've been there. Like they know the feeling. They know they understand deeply what it's like to chase a high, to
Yep.
chase a God, to
Yep.
chase love or what they think is love, all to find that it was false. All to find that it was false advertising. It was smoke and mirrors. Like it was just this look of something, and behind it all was just falsity. And
Yep.
so and I know we're getting to the point where you're gonna share with us the breakthrough and the redemption and the hope of it all, because there is hope. And scripture says as believers we go from glory to glory. Like we
Yeah.
literally are like constantly aiming towards glory. Our outer man is wasting away and our inner man is being strengthened every single day, and that is the hope that we have. But I just wanted those that are watching and listening right now, even if it doesn't look exactly the same, to just envision yourself. And maybe you still feel like you're there, or maybe you feel like, okay, I'm having a turning point and breakthrough myself. And so I just wanted to just pause and reflect for a second, because Brenda, your story is so impactful already, and we haven't even gotten to when Christ knocked your socks off
Nope.
and put you where you're at today. But like just the build up to that point
Yeah.
of severe brokenness. And, I'm not a therapist, but I mean, I'm a podcaster and in real estate. So I listen to a lot of people, and the drill. And just like thinking about when you were a child, you were placed in a position of feeling forgotten and feeling inferior. Like
Yes.
you didn't have a voice, you didn't have a say. You
Right.
didn't have a say over your body, you didn't have a say over your mind, you didn't have a say over like where you lived and who your siblings were going to be. You didn't get a choice.
Right.
And so you were never informed on good decisions.
Right.
Like you didn't even know how to make good decisions because you were never faced with the decision. You were like,
Yep.
here's what you got.
This is it.
This is it. This is what you've been given. And
Yeah.
so sink or swim. And then not to
Yeah.
mention you had flesh patterns of generational curses just
Yes.
running through your blood. Okay, sorry. Keep going. You're on I could go on, but go ahead.
I'll try to be really fast because there's a
Uh,
lot more. But basically, I cheated on my husband at the time. I was going out to the bars every night. It was bound to happen. So
and
the
this is
day
the
that
cult husband, the
this is the
husband.
cult husband.
Okay,
Yes. And my postpartum depression and not wanting children.
got it.
So the day that I got home from that affair, I was called out by him. We had a fight. I accidentally scratched him, and it was a true accident, and he put me in jail. He called the police. There was no question. They arrested me and placed me in the pokey. There was no questions. What was weird was this was a turning point in my life where I realized that there was something wrong with me because when I first went into that jail cell, I was like, not, I was so fearful. I was so afraid. And those women were like, sit down and shut up. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm crying.
Yeah.
But what I found out after talking to those women and being in that jail cell for 12 hours is that we have a lot of freaking stuff in common. There is this weird thing that I have that they have too.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the sickness that I had in my life, the addiction. So it was a huge turning point for me to find out that I was actually like had a lot in common with criminals. So, needless to say, he and I got divorced. He got his 2 kids, and I took my other 3 kids and moved on. Now I got to find victim number 4. And I found him. Great guy, had a lot of money, and I was hooked from day one. The weird thing about this guy is he was sober. And he told me at one point, if you don't get sober, I'm going to leave you. And I said, I don't want you to take your wallet. So I will attempt this sobriety thing. I went to AA and I went to rehab and I got sober and we got married and I was sober with him for 2 years and we had a pretty good time. We had a wonderful time. We had wedded bliss. After 2 years, I was irritable, restless, and discontent because I wasn't following the program and I didn't have Jesus in my life. So I went back out, started drinking again, and there became the worst 3 years of my entire life. We started doing meth together. We
Your husband, who
became,
is sober,
yes.
started doing
When I
meth.
went back out, he did too. He followed me.
Got it.
And within a year, we were doing meth. And 3 years later, we lost everything. I mean, he cheated on me at least 20 times that I caught him. I don't even know about the other 50, but the reason why I kept him was because he kept me high. He was the guy that went out in the night and sought out the drugs and did what he needed to do to bring me home a bag of meth. And that's all I cared about. I did not care about my kids. I did not care about my
Very
family.
transactional. You're like, don't leave me because I
Yes,
need your wallet. Then it was, don't leave me, I need your meth. It was like
yes,
very transactional love. So your whole
yes,
view of love is
yes.
trash.
And meanwhile, I'm dying. My hair's falling out. I look dreadful. I have no money. I can't keep a job. He basically pays the bills, and I'm just this glob of skin sitting in a bedroom in the back of the house. I don't do laundry. I don't feed my kids. I don't go to work. I don't do anything.
And you're in your
And I
30s
learned
at this point?
I want to say 35,
Okay.
35, 36. One thing I hated was the birds. I hated hearing birds sing because to a meth user, and a lot of people on this podcast will understand if they've done meth, you like the night. You love the night. And all of a sudden in the morning, the wee hours of the morning, the birds start to sing, and you're like, dang it, the night is about to be over. And I don't want the night to be over. I want it to be dark because we love darkness.
Hmm.
So fast forward, he goes to prison. Um, we divorce. He goes to prison. I decide I have to find victim number 5. I do. I get married to this other guy. He's an alcoholic. We have a totally destructive, just horrible marriage. 5 years later, I'm I've I've got 3 DUIs. I've done time in jail. I'm back in a halfway house. And I'm like, what the heck? My life sucks. So
Hmm.
I'm in this halfway house, and I decide, and I'm actually going to AA, but I'm like, I'm gonna go out one more time. This is the pivotal moment. Okay. I go out that night. I'm just drinking. Okay. I'm not doing drugs anymore. I'm just drinking. I drive with I drive with my friend. She decides to drive because I can't drive anymore because I'm too drunk. So she runs into a freaking apartment building. We take off. My car is wrecked. We decide the only way we're going to be able to stay up for the rest of the night is to get some meth. And this is like, I don't know, 13 years since I've done meth. We go and we do deplorable things with men to get meth because that's the only way we know how. And the next morning, I'm sitting by my car on the curb, feeling like just horrible. I mean, the feeling I have in my gut is so empty and lonely and void. I cannot tell you how sad I was. I decide, I hear the birds. I hear the birds, and I'm like, I hate birds again. I don't want to hate birds. So I have to go to work, and I'm like, okay, get up, go to work. And I'm driving to work, and I'm thinking about how horrible my life is. And here I am, like 38 years old. Well, 42 years old or something like that. Anyway, 44. How can I keep living my life like this? I'm 44 years old. I am a nothing. I am a nobody. And all of a sudden, I don't feel like I'm in my car anymore. And I feel all this light around me. And I said, God, if that's you, will you help me? Boom. My whole life changed. The desire to drink and use drugs was gone
Wow.
completely.
Wow.
I don't know what happened. I just know that from that point on, I didn't want to drink or use anymore.
Mm.
I started feeling important to people. I started talking to people at the meetings, and I started going to dinner with them and getting to know them. And I got a commitment at AA. My whole life changed. I started praying and asking God every day to like wipe me up from the floor and help me be a better person the next day. I had no moral values. Like I would take off my clothes just to get a bag of that.
Mm.
And now I have all of a sudden I have this moral compass. And it took me about 3 years to gain the self-esteem I needed to actually feel good about myself, to look in the mirror.
Right.
3 years later, this guy gets out of prison, number 4. He texts me and he says, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, on Facebook, because we can find anybody on Facebook. The first thing he does, okay, 12 years later, I haven't
Wow.
talked to him in 12 years.
Wow.
And he texts me, "Hey, how you doing? I just got out." And I'm freaking out. I'm like, "I am fine. What do you
Yeah.
want?"
You're like, I'm saved, healing, and whole. Like, what's up? Yeah.
I do not need you. This is the first time in my life I don't need a man.
Right.
I own my own house. This is 3 years after I got sober. I own my own house. I own my own car. I have a career. My kids love me. My life is stable. I have a moral compass. I don't have a man, but I don't need one.
Yeah.
So I'm like, bye. Bye, Felicia.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the weird thing. Something in me tells me to follow him. So I start following him on Facebook. What's he doing? Why is he praying with these guys? Why is he going and feeding the homeless? He's standing by a cross and he's looking up and he's got his hands in the air and he's with these men and they're all praising Jesus. Who is this Jesus that they know? What is this happening? So 3 months after that, I text him and I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he's like, "This is my life now. I turned my life over to Christ in prison. And you want to learn more about Jesus? I'll show you." And I said, "Yeah, I want to know." Because I didn't need a man, but I had a void in my life. I had a void. I had an emptiness. And so he invites me to church, and I'm like, "Oh, great, another preacher, another man of God that's going to, let us all down." And I decided I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to go happy, but I'll go kicking and screaming and I'll check it out. I literally walk into the church and the spirit comes over me like a warm blanket. And I just start bawling the minute I walk in. And they're singing a song called Reckless Love. Be where I was, I mean, the words, before you spoke a word, I was speaking over you. And I could see God speaking over me. Before you took a breath, I breathed life into you.
Mm-hmm.
Before I was even born,
Yeah.
God formed me into this beautiful person. And it was my choices that took me where I was.
And the lyric,
But God never left me.
when I was your foe, still your love fought for me.
Still your love fought for me.
Yeah.
There's no shadow I won't light up. There's no mountain I won't climb up.
That's
Coming after you.
insane love. Like that is the undoubtedly polar opposite to anything you ever
Ever.
experienced or even shared a
Amen.
glimpse. Like you didn't have a glimpse of that.
Nothing. And I'm
Nothing.
like, I'm like, this is it. This is the high I chased my entire life.
Mm.
This is the feeling that I wanted from every man, every woman, every person, everything in the world that I bought. This feeling I feel right here, I'm going to chase this forever.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And I was hooked. I was immediately hooked. I told my family, I said, I'm seeing him again. They were pissed. My boys, they were so mad. Like, are you kidding me? Why would you be with him? And I'm like, you don't understand. It's different.
And this is number 4 who did the meth with you
Yes.
and cheated on you 100 million times.
Yes.
Okay.
100 million times.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
How can you forgive a person like that? God. There's one answer to that. Only Jesus can bring that healing because our human power cannot fathom forgiving somebody of such a terrible thing.
Yeah.
How do you forgive somebody for killing your heart, breaking your heart, crushing it, pounding it into the ground? How do you forgive somebody? I don't know.
Lord,
But that happened. It happened, and it's a miracle. It's something that you cannot explain with human words.
and now it's your testimony. So fast forward
Yes.
to today. Where are you at?
Okay. So, of course, we got married. So now he's number 4 and number 6. Um, one of our sons, I just want to bring this up because this is kind of impactful. One of our sons, who is an addict and was very close to him as he was a child, also got very close to him again in our second marriage. He overdosed like 4 times in his addiction, and the last time he passed away. And he's gone. This was 3 years after we got back together. And here I want to say this because I want anybody who's listening to understand this. Your life does get better, but life circumstances don't change. You have to accept life on life's terms. And sometimes things happen that are so hurtful. At that time when he died, I lost all faith in God, all faith. I was like, how could you? I turned my life over to you 3 years ago. You left me. You took my son. How could you do this? And it took me 3 months before I would even talk to anybody about God and what happened and why. And what I had to come to grips with, and this is what I want everybody to understand, is that we all have choices on this earth. And our choices impact and change the future. God has a plan for us, but my son decided to change that plan by going against it and doing fentanyl. And fentanyl took his life. I could go out and do fentanyl today. I have that choice. I have freedom, free agency.
Yep.
I could go down to the store right now and buy a bottle of vodka, and not one single person would blink an eye. It's our choices that impact us every day. And this is why I choose Jesus. Because I cannot afford to let my children have to stand at my gravesite. And it was his choice. God did not take him. He took his life by doing fentanyl, not on purpose. Not on purpose. He didn't do it to die. He did it because he was seeking something, chasing a high. Chase, chase, chase. I finally turned back to Jesus. And I can say life is not always easy, but is definitely different than it was before. And I'll take different any day.
Amen.
So
Brenda, what is, and this is something I feel like is a good closing remark, and I do it every show, but with what you've been through between experiencing extreme amount of love, rejection, stress, all of the things, giving your life over to Christ, and then watching your son pass away from a generational curse that you set out to break when you did. What is something that has remained one of your favorite qualities about God?
I don't have to carry the burden. Every single day, I get a choice. I have anxiety. I get nervous about things not working out, and it's because of my past. Things didn't work out in the past. So to me, something's gonna fall apart. I'm
Yep.
always waiting for something to fall apart. But I don't have to carry that burden today. Today, I can go, you know what? Let me let go. And it's not physical, it's spiritual. Let me let go of this anxiety, this thing that I'm trying to control. I'm trying to do my will. Okay. Let me let God handle this because I cannot, as a human, handle this.
Hmm.
And somebody said it earlier today. I'm part of this big women's group. It said, your will and God's will cannot remain in the same place. You have to either do your will or do God's will. And God's will is it's the one that takes all that, lifts all that burden off of you, all
Gives
that
you
weight.
peace.
It gives me peace. It takes away my anxiety.
Yeah, because
And
God's will isn't scary when you know his heart.
yeah,
It's not a exchange of like, oh
right,
no, God's will is gonna be pretty rough. And it's like, no,
right,
life is hard. Things
right.
happen. Like Jesus says, take heart, I overcame the world. Like, but Jesus himself says his yoke is easy and his burden is light. Doesn't
Yes,
say his yoke is tough. Doesn't say his yoke is scary. Doesn't say anything he gives us is doom and gloom.
right.
This world does, but he doesn't. And so God's will, I think, I know for in my journey, I used to struggle with that, God's will, because it sounds like, yikes, like if I'm not in God's will, are you praying in God's will? And I always felt like, I don't know, like it's, God's will.
Yeah,
But as you continue to learn his heart through the scriptures and who he is in our life and the Holy Spirit working in our life, you're like, oh, he's gentle and lowly.
yeah,
He's kind and compassionate. He
right.
has mercy on all of us. It actually says that it's unnatural act to do judgment in the Old Testament. It's unnatural to him. It's natural to him to have mercy. That is innately in him. And
Right.
so it's this shift of thinking of, oh crap, I'm not praying God's will, so God's gonna, he's gonna really show me. And if I don't, then no, you were in God's will and your son passed away
Amen. That,
because we live in a world with cancer. We live in a world
yep,
with suicide. We live in a world
yep.
with tornadoes. We live in a world of hurricanes. We live in a world of miscarriages. We live in a world of brokenness. And
Amen.
so being in God's will isn't so you escape all those things. And being in God's will isn't so you can't enjoy your life.
It's about acceptance.
Yeah, and who he calls you to be
Right.
at all times. Just like
Yes.
Ecclesiastes says, there's a time for mourning, there's a time for dancing, there's a time for reaping, there's a time for sowing. There's a time for working and there's a time for enjoying the fruits of your labor, for it is a gift of God. So it's like it's not a puzzle of I'm now in God's will, and so the puzzle pieces are going to make sense.
Right.
No, being
And
in God's will is accepting his son, Jesus Christ, as Lord and Savior of your life. It's simple.
what would happen if I would have went back out and started using drugs and alcohol because my son passed? How would that have impacted the rest of my family?
Right.
You know, I had
Versus.
to accept. And so I want anybody that's out there that has lost a child to understand that this testimony that I have today for you is that you can do it. You can get through something that devastating sober.
Yep.
You can.
Yep. And
It's not going to be fun, or it's not going to feel good. And I still grieve every single day.
yeah.
That doesn't take that away, but you can do it without drugs and alcohol.
Absolutely. Brenda, thank you so much for sharing your story on the Victorious Living podcast. You're an absolute powerhouse. Your story is going to impact hundreds and thousands, I'm sure of it. And so we just thank you for your vulnerability and your heart for the Lord and your heart for recovery.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching our broadcast. Are you an incarcerated brother or sister who needs encouragement? Write to us at Victorious Living Correspondence, P.O. Box 2751, Greenville, North Carolina 27836, or email us at hope@vlmag.org. To view Victorious Living magazine in its entirety, please have your chaplain contact us at 352-478-2098 or email us through our website at vlmag.org. We are happy to provide our Victorious Living magazine free of charge in bulk with or without staples.